Grand Rising, great time to be alive. Gen X JW in the new norm. Driving back from Asheville back to Charleston. Just making observations about this world we live in today and how much things have shifted since 2020 rapidly. The economy, the Federal Reserve, the inflation, the president, the new residents in the country, the chaos, the disorder, the division. This is real. I wish I could like speak into existence a better subject, but this is real. This is what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with severely divided people who are constantly being programmed by their screens. They're not creating content, they're consuming content nonstop. I'm one of them, and I'm making a shift to create more content and just talk about life, talk about what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing. I grew up through the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and I'm 51 now. I've been sober for 11 years. I was a Jehovah's Witness growing up, so I'd never registered to vote. I've never been into politics. And so I've always had a zoomed out kind of subjective, objective view of politics and news and stuff like that. But in spite of which side you're on, there is some statistics going on in the United States, that's affecting everybody. And, inflation, the printing of money, other countries, coming to take up residency here. We have no idea what's really going on in the world with the big meetings. We're only given so much information to divide each other. And I don't have a lot of faith in this old system of things. And it's crumbling. And it's better that it is, because it's been, favoritism towards some people. I'm a white male heterosexual, and we're starting to get hated on, or have been hated on, because there's been a lot of talk about racism and all this, and the narrative is just, it's really out there. But I'm, I guess, one of the ones that are supposedly privileged, even though I pretty much had to work to get to where I am. I mean, nothing was handed to me. My dad never handed stuff to me. He made me earn it. My mom definitely didn't have much to hand to me, but she gave everything she could to make sure I had a guitar and make sure I had a skateboard, and she did whatever she could to feed her kids and keep that shelter. So I'm not middle class. I was lower middle class growing up, I guess you could say. And then I took it upon myself to leave home and go out and be a drug addict and not an alcoholic, but just, making some bad decisions. Ended up in juvenile correctional facilities, and for dealing acid when I was 14. I took acid and mushrooms way too young in my life. It was almost like taking the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil way too early. I wish I was still ignorant on some things, but there's no taking that back. Once you see, you can't unsee. And it's just interesting to be alive today and I'm a professional musician, guitar player, entertainer. I travel the world, and I'm not a rock star. I don't act like a rock star. I don't want to be a rock star. I don't like the attention. In spite of like what it might be to be a professional musician, like my job is to go and perform and play a show and get people to sing along, and maybe play some originals that reach out to people, that move people, and that's all I want to be. I don't want to be rich and famous. I don't want to be Zac Brown or John Mayer, even though I admire both of those guys. I think the industry in Hollywood, once you sign a deal with them, they pretty much have you, doing whatever they want. So I appreciate my freedom for what it is today. I'm sober, going on 11 years, and in that journey, I've been able to take what money I do have and my good credit and create housing for people in sobriety, and that feels good. I just want to be able to give back. I've given back to my family. They turned into jealous haters and slandered me and attacked me, and they'll never like me. They say they love me and all of that, but they're very evil. They're very, very evil, including my mom, who claims to be a Christian. She allows these evil people into her house, and they abuse her, and I try to pull her out of it, and she doesn't want to get rescued. So I have to block my family. My brothers, would love to, they salivate over the thought of me like getting sued and losing everything I have. My brothers come after me. My other brother's trying to get me to invest in his company that he can't even explain what it is. My family's like wacky. My dad's the only sane one. He's a Jehovah's Witness still. That says a lot about that religion, people that are humble and want to be of service. There's something to be said about that. So that is a snapshot of my life today. Even though I am, doing well, I'm doing a lot of business, so I'm finding out who's a good fit for me and who's not. Those conversations aren't always pleasant and professional. I got a lot of people coming at me trying to overcharge me for things, or try to do work without insurance, and you call them out and then they get all butthurt and get defensive. And I called some people out, a video guy out for overcharging me, and he got all butthurt and started attacking my character. I had a guy that was supposed to help me out with social media. He was selling fake views and fake followers. I called him out. We're not friends anymore. I'm just done doing business with friends. And I'm learning some hard lessons, man. But I'm grateful nonetheless. I'm not young like I used to be. I'm not as ambitious as I used to be. I'm kind of in a nice little pocket of comfort, financial security, beautiful relationships with people that I love and care about, and care about me. And I've got great business partners that I've had for over 20 years. The same people, because they can count on me. I show up, I'm professional, I'm one of the best at what I do, and I can say that without arrogance. It's confidence. There's a reason why I'm successful. And whether other people see it or not, it's not my job, to convince them. I'm totally fine with not being the most important guy in the room. And so I sit from a place of under the radar, kind of stealth, and I observe the world. And it's an interesting world today, as you know. I don't know what you're going through, but leave a comment. Let me know what you're observing in the world, and who you are and where you're from, and your thoughts on what's going on, and whether you're left or right or center or nothing. Like, there's definitely some kooky stuff. It's like living in the Twilight Zone today. So let me know. And I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that I can talk about my life and talk about things, and get it off my chest and process it and turn it into art or alchemy, because I know somebody else out there sees it too, and they're going to relate, on some level, whether they're Gen X or not. But yeah, it's Twilight Zone out there, folks. I'm glad to be alive. There's a lot of dead people that wish they were still alive, I'm sure, if that was a thing. So I'm sure that somebody in your life has it worse off than you do. So let's ground in gratitude for a second and say thank you for the water to drink, the food to eat, the oxygen to breathe, the sunlight, nature, animals, children, good people. Let's give thanks for the sacred. Have a good day.